I was briefly introducing all your international record and also your effort and your vision that influence thousands, millions of people for their life in the cancer treatment, stem cell therapy, but also in many other approaches to make their life better and more successful. So with that, I leave this to you with your presentation. Xin chào các bạn.
Come on, Dr. Tai. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me here today. My apologies for my lack of knowledge of the Vietnamese language. So, as soon as they're ready here, we'll start talking a little bit. But today I'm going to tell you a story. It's a story about life and death and survival, and about having an extreme optimism and gratefulness for life. All right, again, thank you very much. It is an honor to be here. Again, I'm going to tell you a story about survival and stem cells and many other miracles. So, the story really begins about 12 years ago. I just had moved back from living in Europe, where I was a software executive. I live and I'm from the Silicon Valley in California and was representing technology companies. I also did a lot of charitable things at that time. This is something that once a month I would go into the Red Cross to donate platelets, which are blood products, for kids that were suffering from leukemia. In early December of 2002, I went into the Red Cross for my blood donation, and they noticed something wrong with my blood. I was borderline anemic, which means my red blood cells were very low. And they said maybe I should wait to do the donation and see a doctor first. Within a few days, I had my diagnosis. But in the meantime, I was moving on with my job, hosting the company holiday party, etc. But something was very wrong with my blood, even though we did not know what. Very shortly after a bone marrow test, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. At the time when the doctor gave me his diagnosis, he was in tears because he knew that at this time my cancer was very far progressed, and that without emergency treatment I would only live maybe 4 or 5 more days. For 1 month, I spent 1 month doing chemotherapy and radiation at Stanford Medical Center in California. And I was very lucky to even survive this 1 month. After I was able to leave the hospital, I realized that so many people around the world were dying from blood cancers, leukemias, etc., and they needed a bone marrow transplant. The Silicon Valley community where I live responded with very much generosity, and they set up Save Our Eric website and Save Our Eric posters, and within 1 month they were able to raise almost $250,000 to start a foundation to help people receive these bone marrow transplants. Over 100 people volunteered, and we put together one of the largest bone marrow registration drives that was ever done in the United States. Over 1,000 people came, and we tested 760 people to be added to the International Bone Marrow Registry. Unfortunately, even though so many people came to save my life, and the community did so much to save my life, we could not find any bone marrow matches. This was a very difficult time because the top medical centers in the United States were telling me that nothing could be done, and that I would die within 1 to 3 months. Not being one to sit down easily, I networked with, it turns out, this is a very interesting story, it turns out I have a half-sister that I'd only met 2 years before. I was an adopted child, so I grew up in a family that was not mine. And the sister happened to be working at the transplant center at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. She was able to get me into experimental clinical trials at the Seattle hospital. And so instead of just going home and dying, I had some option to try. I spent 9 months at the Seattle hospital, and I went through 2 failed bone marrow transplants with a lot of radiation and chemotherapy, because they have to kill your blood and bone marrow systems before they can put new cells in you. So I went through 2 failed bone marrow transplants, as well as multiple other chemotherapy procedures and protocols. Unfortunately, none of the treatments worked. And again, a year after I was first told that there was nothing that could be done, again the doctors were telling me, I'm sorry, but the treatments are not working, and we really don't have anything else to offer you except to make you comfortable while you die. I'm a very stubborn person, so I did not accept this prognosis. I started doing research on basically stem cell options. I realized that bone marrow is simply a source of stem cells. That although transplants were based on bone marrow traditionally, that there was a lot of research being done on other sources of stem cells. And such as, you have the bone marrow here, which is collected from a donor person. You have mobilized peripheral blood, which can also be collected using apheresis. And then another option that they were doing experimental trials on was umbilical cord blood from a newborn baby. I started learning about the difference between these sources of stem cells, but unfortunately, I learned that these treatments with cord blood stem cells were only working on children, but they were not having any success using them with adults. Just some of the data that I learned about the difference between allogenic bone marrow and umbilical cord blood. In some ways, umbilical cord blood for transplant can be better than bone marrow. For once, there's less graft versus host disease. There is easier matching done, because when you have to genetically match bone marrow for a transplant, it has to be very close. Otherwise, the immune system from the new cells will attack and kill the body. However, stem cells from umbilical cord blood do not attack the body as heavily, at least chronically, because they're from a baby immune system, and they have not matured yet with a lot of knowledge, which makes them more adaptable. Again, I was told by every major medical center in the United States that we cannot do this treatment on adults. It only works on children, so unfortunately, this is not an option for you. However, again, I'm very stubborn, and because I was working internationally for so many years, I worked in Germany, in England, I worked in Japan, Korea, many other countries. I networked with the doctors from all of these countries and found out that research had been going on for the last 5 years using cord blood stem cell transplants on adults. I arranged meetings with European doctors from Switzerland and Italy, and learned that they had successfully used cord blood stem cells on adults. The reason why it was not working before was simply a volume issue. One little baby's cord blood is not enough cells to seed an adult body. I also learned from networking with these contacts that they were helping to launch new clinical trials in the United States doing this umbilical cord stem cell transplant on adults using 2 or 3 cord bloods. I found out that in a few months, they were opening trials for these transplants in Duke University in North Carolina and the University of Minnesota Hospital, associated with Mayo Clinic. You may have heard of Mayo Clinic. I called ahead and I scheduled a meeting with the chief of adult stem cell transplant at Minnesota, and he was very surprised that I knew about his clinical trial coming before he announced it. So I met with him And they said basically that I had been through so much treatment already that my chances of surviving such a transplant were very small, maybe only 5%. But if I lived through the procedure, that I would have a very good chance of having these new cells grow into being my new immune system. So the choice was very difficult. Either I wait 3 months and I die for sure, or I go tomorrow and try this treatment, which will probably kill me, but at least I will die fighting.
Why the treatment killed you?
The treatment for umbilical cord stem cell transplantation is very aggressive. They have to give you so much radiation and chemotherapy at one time that it kills all of your blood and all of your bone marrow, so that if the new cells don't grow, you will not survive.
Okay.
I decided, it took a long time because it was a very difficult choice to do a procedure that I probably would not survive. But I decided that I would rather die fighting than slowly over time. And on July 23rd of 2004, I went ahead and had the multiple cord blood stem cell transplant. This here, that's my mother. This is my wife at the time. And these are actually the stem cells that were transplanted into me. I don't look very sick here because the radiation and chemo takes several days to catch up. It's very interesting. They basically give you a lot of radiation and chemotherapy for 2 days, and then they flush your system, all the chemo out of your system, and then before your body starts to die, because after radiation it takes a couple days to start deteriorating, then they put the new cells in you, and as the old cells are dying out, they're encouraging the new cells to grow into the body. The procedure takes about 100 days to know if the new cells are going to grow in you or not. This 100 days is very, very difficult. There were times when the doctors said you probably will not live through the night, and so there were many times when I had to prepare that I might not live for the next hour or 2 hours. But obviously, magically, I did survive, and now my blood is female. Since the cord blood transplant, the cord blood stem cells I received were from a baby girl that were found in Milan, Italy stem cell bank. So afterwards, I decided I wanted to dedicate my life to assisting other patients, not only cancer patients, but all patients all over the world suffering from every disease, about mental strategies and research strategies to find the most advanced treatment, to push for the progression of new medical technology. So the Eric Drew Foundation has still carried on from the initial community effort to save my life. I also became an advocate, obviously, for cord blood stem cell treatments and banking effort. So just a little bit about the science. As you know, especially those who work in regenerative medicine, a stem cell is a baby cell, basically, that has the potential to become other types of cells. This is just sort of a basic chart of how a stem cell differentiates into various other types of cells, including hematopoietic, or blood cells, and etc. Some of the diseases that obviously you are studying here and working on here are some of the applications that can be used with cord blood stem cells, autologous stem cells, and other sources. This is an article I found in the Asian Scientist journal from a couple of years ago, and the article talks about the limited use of cord blood and that the potential for banking may not be so great. I actually disagreed with this article on several of the topics because of all the different types of diseases that are being treated and research is being done to treat now. Some of these diseases are listed here, almost 100 are listed. Most of them are hematopoietic blood problems, blood cancers, etc. But there are clinical trials, as you are working on here at this university, for things like diabetes, different types of cancers, lupus, even a growing problem in the United States is childhood autism. So cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy is an interesting one because it is a damage to the nervous system, and damage to the nervous system is very complicated. There's a researcher at Duke University, which you may know her name is Joanne Kurtzberg, and she has started trials, including this young boy here, with, this is at Duke University, basically infusing the child who are diagnosed with cerebral palsy with their own umbilical cord blood 1 year or maybe 18 months after birth. And it's absolutely amazing. This baby here was showing severe signs of cerebral palsy. They infused his own cord blood at 1 year old, and within a week he was able to wave and say mama and dada, and had amazing neural regeneration after that infusion. And this is just a couple of quotes from that article. The trial at Duke is using 300, almost 400 children with autism, 100 children with cerebral palsy, 90 adults that are stroke victims. So these are all different types of trials that are going on just at one university in the United States. And I know that you are also working on treatments for using the same types of resources here. So congratulations on that work. So the foundation, I'm very happy to announce our new effort. We were given a new name that we will be launching an entire international community of disease-specific communities, research communities. Think of a Facebook for patients, in a way. So weheal.org is a website that we'll be launching next month. However, it is up on the internet if you want to look at it now. And there are 3 introduction videos that you can look at, which talk about the importance of, whenever you're diagnosed with a serious or terminal illness, to network with researchers, with other patients, and become an expert in your own disease very quickly through the tools that we will provide here.
So I just want to elaborate more on how significant and important what you are heading for with the new program and website. But you can please.
Sure. So it's basically going to be broken down into 2 areas. One is the Patient Strategy and Resource Center, where patients who are diagnosed with any type of serious or terminal illness can go and learn tools for strategy to deal with an illness, from everything from mental strategies to how to announce this to your family, how to gather community support for helping you take care of your family while you're sick, helping with your children. I mean, all the things that patients need to get through such a serious or terminal illness, because it's very difficult. So that is the strategy. The other area is also very important, is how do you become an expert in your own disease? Where do you go in such a short time to learn about treatment options, about what technologies are being developed, about how to look into possible clinical trials that you can do. So we will be partnering with research facilities such as National University of Vietnam and other research facilities around the world to help promote the new technologies being developed, and also to provide a matching service, really, to provide matching for patients to the clinical trials.
So it's being more like Facebook for the patients?
Well, actually, the Patient Strategy and Resource Center is one area, and then the other area are the We Heal patient communities. So these communities, actually, they're not just for patients. They're for researchers, they're for doctors, they're for patients, they're for anybody who wants to be active in this community and help education and promote new technology. So the patient communities will be the Facebook for patients.
Okay.
So there will be thousands of communities for specific diseases, for specific research, even if eventually we see that if any individual wanted to create their own community to network about what their advocacy is, then you could create Ty's Cancer Blog or whatever you would like to call it.
So in a way, in the US, we always have some sort of foundation for any kind of thing, like I associate with glaucoma research. So this will, but the community will be more proactive than foundation, right?
That's right.
Be more open.
Correct, yes. A lot of foundations. Let's take, for example, when I was diagnosed with leukemia and I was looking for resources, I contacted the Leukemia Lymphoma Society of the United States, a very big foundation that raises billions of dollars for cancer research. However, all of their effort is really to develop new technology in the future, which is great, but they couldn't really do anything for me at that point. So this is going to be more proactive, and we do plan on actually launching each community in partnership with the foundation specific for that disease. So just to talk a little bit about myself, after all of this treatment, 2 years of radiation and chemo, people ask me, what happened? Just left the hospital? Actually, it was very difficult over the last 10 years because all of those treatments resulted in so much damage to my body. Basically, all of the bones in my legs and in my limbs are dying, called osteonecrosis. I've had most of my joints have been replaced with titanium. There's a few that haven't been because they don't have the technology to replace the ankles yet like I need, but I have all mechanical knees, mechanical hips. Even my eyes are implant bifocal lenses. So yeah, people give me the nickname Bionic Man because I've been completely rebuilt. One of the reasons why I use beating all odds because ALL is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I'm also writing a book about my life called It's All Good, and obviously the all has a dual meaning. So we've had limited time today. I just had enough time to do an overview of my story and my advocacy around the world for patients and for new technologies. But I think Dr. Tai wanted to open up the room for some questions and discussion. I think we can go ahead. I would like to say, Kemang,
Yes.
Dr. Tai.
Yes.
Kemang sa National University of Vietnam, and Kemang to you for being here today, and I appreciate it very much. And just to remember that everything that is manifested in the world comes first from thought. They talk about a secret. The secret to manifestation of your thoughts is to focus on what you know can be achieved and be very optimistic in life about what you can achieve, and those things will manifest themselves in the actual world. So everything you see, this building, this bottle, this shirt, everything started with a thought.
Yeah.
So focus on those thoughts, stay optimistic about those thoughts, and you can achieve anything you want in your lifetime.
You are the newest person use the stem cell treatment, but the new treatment is sometimes dangerous. So what is your family feedback when you tell them that you will choose the complex stem cell and you may be die in tomorrow?
It was very difficult for my family to hear about my diagnosis, but they were very supportive of stem cell treatment. I think that we didn't mention this today, but cells. And the controversy is really a false controversy, because stem cells are not controversial. We have stem cells living in our body now. Our bodies produce millions of stem cells every day. The only controversy was created, I think mostly in America, by the pharmaceutical lobby, because if we develop natural therapies, then it will infringe upon the profits from pharmaceutical business. So, again, stem cells are not controversial. The only controversy was about embryonic stem cells. And people have this false vision that embryonic stem cells are from killing fetuses or killing babies. And this is really not true, as you know. So a lot of the controversy is just about educating people that these treatments are not controversial. And when I approached my family about this, they were in full support. So I hope that answers your question.
So I have 3 questions. The first is, how is the baby girl who gives you cord blood? How is she doing now? And the second question is, now all of your bone marrow is hers now, right? So if the girl gets blood cancer, and so your bone marrow will be a match for her, and so that benefit her as well. And the third question is, I've heard about the baby's cord blood tank stem cell bank, and it works like you save your child's cord blood for later use and use on your child. It's not donating. It's just to save it for later use. So how can we donate? Like if I have a baby and I want to donate the cord blood, and how can I do that?
Those are all very good questions, but I think there were 5, not 3. But the first question, the stem cells that I received had been frozen for 8 years. So because I had the transplant just a little over 10 years ago, the young baby girl just turned 18 sometime this year. In Italy, they have national medicine, and the Italian government pays for all of the donation and everything with stem cells. So when the stem cells were donated at that baby's birth, it was a closed donation. In other words, it's not public information who that person is. The Italian government does keep records, and they do know. So very soon I will be petitioning the Italian government for to have them contact her and see if she will give permission to meet with me. But so I don't know how she's doing. I really don't. Like I said, they were taken at birth very quickly, and they were frozen right away, and they had been frozen for 8 years when I received them. The next question was about, let's see, yes, my bone marrow is now 100% donor cells. If I had any of my original cells in me, they would be cancerous, because I had a cancer of my immune system itself. So I had to completely wipe out every cell in my body in order to receive the new cells. And then the last question you were asking is, please, what was it? Remind me again. The donation. So when families bank cord blood for themselves, it's like an insurance policy. Some people decide that they want to take out an insurance policy in case one of their children gets sick, or in case their child may be diagnosed with cerebral palsy 6 months or 1 year after the birth. But see, you don't know about these diagnoses beforehand. So if you want to basically take out insurance, you need to decide before the baby's born, do I want to bank this stem cells for my child, or even possibly for myself as time progresses. Because once you give it away, it's gone. It's going to be used for other purposes. However, I want to say that I am a huge advocate for having a public banks that we can all draw from if need be. Unfortunately, in the United States, we do not have a national bank. So when people donate, they donate to private banks, which then will sell those cords to when people need them. But I would very much like to see donation and free supply to people who need them all over the world at some point. So.
Thanks for your sharing and information you told us today. I have a question for you. First, is there any danger for the mother when you take the cold blood from the donate? When you take cold blood, and the second is when we donate cold blood, and will we have any support when we get cancer? Because I know the money to pay for treatment cancer in Vietnam is about $100 million, $10,000 and more dollar. Any support we have to reduce the cost.
Yes.
And the third question is about have any required for the cord blood today, because I know the number of cord blood stem cells is little than the peripheral blood stem cell. So if the cord blood today is not get the required, which we use the cord blood for research or what?
Yeah. So there's a few things there. One. Back to what you were asking about, the applications. So generally, if you're going to do a transplant, for example, you asked if the baby who donated my cells became sick and had a blood cancer. Normally, if you have a blood cancer and it's related to your immune system, like mine was, you cannot use your own cells to transplant back, because basically you have a cancer of your immune system. So if you replace your immune system with the same one, you're not solving the problem. So generally, when you do a transplant, you need to use cells from an allogenic source, from someone else. So usually for transplant, they use either cord blood or bone marrow from a sibling, from a brother or sister. When you bank cord blood, you are, let's say you have one baby and you bank the cord blood, and really that cord blood is more probably going to be used if one of the other brothers or sisters has cancer. It can be used for the same baby. You can use its own cord blood if it's for a therapy for neurological stimulation or cerebral palsy or autism or some of these other therapies other than transplant. So, did that answer your question?
Eric, I think Dr. Fu can add to the issue, because he's an expert in cancer stem cell.
Yes, please.
So that
thank you very much for those questions. Those are great questions. Did I answer all of them? Yes, great.
Thank you, Dr. Fu. He has nicely elaborated your case with some of the mechanism and the ways in immune cell work to lead to your successful recovery and successful life as well.
So I think I will just maybe finish by saying that there's many ways that the Eric Foundation and WeHeal.org can work with the National University of Vietnam to, one, promote the technologies being developed here, the clinical trials that you will be doing. We can also, because of my extensive network of people, both in the public sector at Duke University and other research programs around the world, we can make introductions for the people, you, students and professors and researchers here, to the other researchers working on some of the same technology to collaborate. And also in the private sector, I also have extensive knowledge within the pharmaceutical industry, which I've served as a spokesperson for many years, to expand on the business opportunities that will be developed through the research being done as well. So.
Xin cảm ơn tất cả các bác sĩ, xin cảm ơn ban giám đốc ngân hàng Liên Hợp Quốc, xin cảm ơn tất cả các bạn, các nhà báo, các phóng viên, và đặc biệt xin cảm ơn tất cả các em chúng ta đã có một cái buổi chiều rất vui, còn lớp học đến đây chính thức.